everywhere from £50 a week up to £100 million, and they're different. They range differently from everyone, but and from country to country. To be fair, different countries have different tax laws, so different vehicles. But from your point of view, at the sort of normal end, I'm not going to call it the low end because I'm in that boat as well. It's as tax efficient as you can get it. That's where you start. You use all the tax efficiencies and then you step up into different things.
Welcome back to the show. It's your girl Sarah right here on Relaks Radio. Now you're tuned into the sunrise, and it's almost we're getting closer to the final hour of the show. But don't worry, because I'm here to keep you company. I'm here to share some thoughts and opinions with you because that is what I love to do right here on Relaks Radio on the sunrise. All right. Now I want to very quickly run you through everything that we discussed. I want to make sure that you are aware of climate change catastrophe that might happen, that is going to happen if we don't take the necessary steps that we need to take. All right. But before I get into that, if you want to share your thoughts and your ideas with me, go ahead, do that. You can call me, you can text me, you can be a part of the show. That's all you need to do. You just have to just text me or call me on 078 to share your thoughts and opinions with me. All right. However, something else you can do also is to make sure that you're always or rather to make sure that you're always informed and updated, is to go follow us on our socials. All right, you can go follow us on our socials, which is Facebook. You can like us on Facebook actually, and follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, and make sure that you're always informed about the very latest that happens, not just here in the United Kingdom, but in fact all over the entire world as well. All right, so don't forget to do that. Don't forget to get in touch with us and share with us whatever that you have to say. All right. Now, before we actually get into the conversation, you can actually go download an app too, which is available on both the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store. That way, you can make sure that you're always informed and updated about the very latest that happens, not just here in the United Kingdom, but in fact, all over the entire world as well. All right. So don't forget to do that. However, now we're going to head back into our conversation, which is a climate change catastrophe and why you need to pay attention. All right. Now, earlier we were talking about how much our planet has changed, right? How glaciers have melted, how there are rising sea levels, and how we're seeing we're seeing not forest floods, but rather flash floods and forest fires all over the world, right? And more often than not, we just tend to think, oh, this is just a seasonal thing. But the truth is, a lot of us haven't really realized that the reason we're having these problems, the reason we're seeing these things, is because of the climate change, right? It's because trees have dried out. It's because habitats and different plant and animal species have been destroyed, or they are extinct right now. That we're having so many forest fires in the world right now. The most recent one that's happening is the one in Greece, and yesterday they deployed about they deployed some soldiers from the United Kingdom to actually help them there all the way in Greece. So now that is just one effect of how the climate has changed, right? So that's what I wanted to tell you about, and I wanted to make you aware, because flash floods we faced as well. Right here in the UK, we had flash floods, and the Met Department also gave some warnings with regard to the strong winds and the floods, and what we should do to actually make sure we're safe and make sure that we take care of ourselves, right? So this is just the beginning, right? Because look, I know how many instances I mean, I can't even count the instances I've seen people saying stuff to Greta Thunberg, right? Sure, she's a child, so what does she know about the environment? Oh, she barely even knows anything about the environment. But the truth is, let's be quite honest with this as well, I think she's doing much more for the environment than you or I are, right? We're just sitting behind our phones, and I'm just here sitting behind a screen and telling you about it, making you aware of it. But she's actually out there, making people aware. She's going on protests and she's trying to get people to cut down on gas emissions and whatnot. And we saw, like, a few months back, we saw how Shell Gas actually cut down, not necessarily cut down, but they made some changes in policy to actually make sure that they can help the planet, right? So if she can do that, why are we just sitting and not really doing anything about it, right? Which is a question that we should really ask ourselves, right? Now, the IPCC actually predicts that if we don't change the way the IPCC actually predicts that if we don't change some of the things that we're doing right now, what's going to happen is that the temperature will continue to rise from between 2.5 degrees to 10 degrees Fahrenheit in the next century, right? So you can already imagine the problems that we go through during these months, these past few years. We've been going through problems, right, because of climate change. So imagine if we have to go through more problems because of the rising temperatures, then things are going to get much much worse, right? And something else that we forget to keep in mind, something else we forget is that we can't exist without plants, we can't exist without other animals, right? Because we're literally a system of biodiversity. We're an ecosystem for a reason, right? We cannot survive without each other, because if plants aren't there, we're not going to have oxygen to breathe. We're not going to have plants to eat, right? So it's obviously very very important to keep these things in mind, because if not, you're actually going to miss out on a lot of things, and life is going to get really really hard for us, right? Now make sure you stay tuned, because we're going to head into a small break, and after that we will be back to keep talking more about this. But until then, make sure you stay tuned. Welcome back to the show. It's your girl Sarah right here on Relax Radio. Super, super excited to be here because we're having a very, very important conversation. But I want to very quickly remind you that you can get in touch with me on 078 to share your thoughts, share your opinions with me, because I would absolutely love to hear whatever it is that you have to say with regard to what is currently happening in the world. All right. So let's very quickly head into our conversation, because we still have a little bit more left to talk about, climate change, right? And how we're at the edge of this, or we're on the verge of climate change catastrophe if we don't take the steps that we really have to take, because we're running out of time, right? We're not, we're almost at the end of not having enough time. All right, and that's a big big problem. So that's why we're having this conversation. All right, now something that I really need to talk to you about is that a lot of ice is melting around the world right now. For example, I'm going to talk about Montana's, Glacier National Park, right, where they actually had about 150 glaciers all the way back in 1910, whereas now they have less than 30. So obviously, this means that the ice has melted, and what that has meant is that melting ice actually contributes to sea level rise, right? And global sea levels are actually rising at about 0.13 inches, which is about 3.2 millimeters a year, and the rise is occurring at a faster rate than the recent years. Okay, which means that our planet is actually in a lot of danger, right? And there are plant and animal populations that are either extinct or on the verge of being extinct, which is basically, they're endangered as well. All right. Now, Mr. Alok Sharma, who happens to be responsible for making the COP26 climate summit in Glasgow this year a success, he actually said that, if we don't get it right this moment, it could mean catastrophic, consequences for the world. All right. And the reason he actually said this is because, right now we're seeing the impacts of climate change across the world, right? We've seen terrible flooding, we've seen forest fires, we've seen it not just here in the UK, but we've seen it in Europe, we've seen it in China, we've seen it in North America. And that's what we need to keep in mind, right? These things are really, really bad. So it's important for us to keep that in mind, since we have to save the planet for not just for our future, but for the future of our friends and their families, for the little kids who are going to be born in the next few years. All right, so it's important to keep that in mind. However, it's time for me to head out of here, so I will be back in a few more minutes to keep talking to you about mental health, COVID-19, the universities, education, how education is expensive, and so much more. So make sure you stay tuned, because I will be back in a few more minutes.